Thank you very much for that conversation. Once again, my name is Reema. I'm going to be your moderator during this next conversation. There is no question that our oceans are facing significant challenges. It's absolutely obvious. In reality, the oceans have absorbed in excess of 90% of the excess heat that is being produced in our climate system. They're getting hotter at a rate which is making life for all of us pretty challenging, I think it is safe to say. So, what are our oceans going to look like in the next decade, in the next 2 decades, by 2050? Well, that is exactly the conversation we're going to have in just a moment. I'm not going to be having that conversation by myself, however, so please give a very warm welcome, joining us virtually, to Her Royal Highness Ambassador Reema Bandar Al Saud, the Ambassador to the United States at the Embassy of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And joining me here in person in Riyadh, please welcome John Pagano, Group CEO of Red Sea Global. John. Good to have you join this conversation. I'm sorry that it sounded so very much disturbing, the numbers that I was giving, but in reality, it is seriously concerning. And the question is not a frivolous one to ask, whether indeed our ocean economy will survive the next industrial revolution. When we look at what is happening, some would argue no. But let's take a closer look at that and what exactly it means. What exactly is it going to take for the ocean economy not just to survive, but to thrive? Princess Reema?
Oh, thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for having me here today. As some of you may know, we've launched an initiative in partnership with the FII called The Wave, and that's exactly what we're trying to look at. Today, we all know that the health of our planet and our oceans and our ecosystems are all connected to our well-being. And it's taken us a while to realize that. But we also know that regenerating marine and coastal ecosystems and the economies are an essential part of the health of this planet, and they can't be pulled apart. I'm sure that many of you know that ocean-related industries generate over 2.5 trillion economic value per year globally, and they support, and this is critical, 3 billion people's livelihoods in industries that include seafood, port construction, coastal tourism. And I believe that we are looking at potential just growth in these economies, but we have to look at it through the lens of, yes, we can, and we can grow them, but not at the expense of the ocean. And that's why I truly believe, and I know that John does, that the investment in the blue economy has a trifecta of positive impact. Number one, it's on our holistic well-being. Number two, it's on the economy globally. And number three, this collaboration of well-being and economic investment in coastal communities really can be considered as part of the toolkit that can restore the damage that has been done to oceans. You don't have to have it separated. It's all one and the same.
I think there's no doubt about that, but perhaps if you can break it down then for us, John, what does that look like when you have this sort of better balance? What are the decisions and the choices that we need to be looking at making to ensure exactly what Princess Reema is describing actually materializes?
Well, I think you have to start with, the oceans are in desperate need of rehabilitation. I think we've taken the oceans for far too long for granted, and I think we need to look beyond sustainability. I often say that sustainability is no longer enough, and we need to regenerate our planet. And we do that by taking proactive and positive steps to avoid the things that are causing the challenges within the oceans. Plastics, I see that on the screens. 10 to 12 million tons of plastics get dumped into the sea each year. We need to stop that. We need to stop using single-use plastics. Carbon dioxide emissions are choking our oceans. The oceans are the lungs of this world. They produce 50% of all oxygen, but they've absorbed, as you've heard from Princess Reema, over 90% of excess heat is absorbed by the oceans. You can't do that forever. So we need to start making things like stop producing CO2. So at Red Sea, we've committed ourselves to being totally off-grid, 100% renewable energy. Between the projects that we're developing today, our first phase alone will save 1 million tons of CO2 each year. When we complete the project, 5 million tons of CO2 will not be emitted into the atmosphere, which therefore doesn't end up in the oceans. That's the equivalent of taking 2 million cars off the roads, or 6,500 trips between the Red Sea and London. So those are the kinds of things that we need to do to pull into action, to start taking positive steps to regenerate our oceans.
What of this question that comes up so very often? We don't necessarily know how impactful the ocean is going to be in terms of sustainability. So the minerals that we can extract, the water that we can use for hydroelectric power, and all of these things which directly impact the ocean. But we don't necessarily know what impact it has on the life in the ocean, but resources are a question. There's this tug of war, if you will, which is happening. In your view, how do we better balance that?
Is that for me?
Yes.
Well, I think we need to use a lot of what we know. We learn the lessons of the past, and we also need to be smart about how we develop things in the future. I think we have much more tools at our disposal to really study things more definitively before you actually execute. So for us, when we started our developments, we didn't start in the traditional fashion of just crashing ahead. We actually brought science into the equation first. So with science, we can study the resources that are available. I think one of the interesting facts, I don't know that many people know, we know more about outer space than we do about our oceans. So the oceans is the next frontier, and that's an area of great, potential for the future. The more we learn about our oceans, the more we'll discover about the potential resources that are going to be at our disposal. But we need to do things ultimately in a sustainable manner that ultimately preserves that precious ecosystem. As Princess Reema said, 3 billion people rely on the oceans for their livelihoods.
Thank you for that segue. It's like you're reading my mind or something. Princess Reema, if I can come to you, you mentioned exactly that. How many people are directly dependent on our oceans? The reality, once again, is that even though we recognize it as a resource, we need to do better and think differently. What is it that we need to be thinking differently, or how do we need to be thinking differently about preserving those livelihoods while at the same time taking care of the environmental heritage?
So just to be clear, I am not a scientist. I'm simply someone who wants to retire by the ocean, and that's where my passion for this comes. But when I looked at this and I studied the problem, you have 3 groups that inherently seem to think they have nothing to do with each other: the private sector, government, and the NGOs. And I found this bizarre sense of animosity between the 3 who all have the same objective, which is to create jobs, which is to create healthy environments, and to do better for the next generation. And so when we created the Wave, our mindset was, and the question we asked was, how can we bring a concept of radical collaboration to break the silos that these 3 sectors have created around each other? Regulations that don't help businesses thrive are the wrong regulations. But they are correct if you consider them from the point of view of the regenerative economy. And how can we help facilitate businesses to do better, create more jobs, but also be a part of the solution for oceans and coastal communities? Because those 3 billion people, those jobs can be sustainable and they can be enduring, because the ocean, the secret of the ocean is it's regenerative. We're just not giving it time. We're abusing it constantly and withdrawing resources from it without giving it the space to breathe and rebuild itself. And with the NGOs, I know this is going to upset a lot of people, but they need to stop shaming, shunning, and shouting at the private sector and come with solutions. Because if you shut down the industries that you feel are the ones destroying this environment rather than working with them, you're shutting down 3 million, billion, extrapolate that over and over and over for all of the additional jobs that come from these jobs. You're taking down industries and people's livelihoods. We can't do that. Shouting, shaming, and shunning people is the wrong methodology, and it's not what we subscribe to. We've found when you go to the private sector and present them with possibilities and solutions, but also show them the benefit to their bottom line, they're the first people that come on board. And my advice to the private sector is just take a step back, call us. We'll help you walk through this, and we'll help you see that your benefit to your bottom line, to your shareholders, will be multiplied if you're part of the pathway of good. If we keep extracting resources, whether they're on land or in the oceans, we're going to have a very sad and sorry situation in this world, that there's no amount of millions today that will ease your heart for the damage of tomorrow. And I would ask them to invest in innovation. I would ask them to take the bet on the next generation. I'd ask them to look at What is the support required of the young entrepreneurs to take them out of the box of entrepreneurship and innovation into the box of mainstream businesses? There's so many inspiring stories, but it's time to stop them from being inspiring stories to being realities. And the only way to do that is to create this sense of collaboration, have a sense of radical collaboration, and break the silo. The NGO needs to talk to the private sector respectfully, the private sector needs to look at the NGO respectfully, and the governments need to create the regulations or ease of regulation that allows for innovation and for communities to thrive.
What I found interesting, and I think you and I share the desire to retire by the ocean, so I find it interesting that so many people do. So many people want to go and travel to the ocean. And yet, when it comes to choices and decisions that individuals make in their own lives, which can directly negatively impact the oceans, there's almost a lot less consideration. What is the conversation that we need to be having that is not just about NGOs and corporates, but that is about Joe Public, you and me on the street who want to go to the ocean, changing our behavior, which will drive a different kind of behavior? I'd like you both to address that, but perhaps Princess Reema, if I can begin with you, and then you, John.
So we've lost, I think, a sense of community and accountability for personal behavior, and that breaks my heart. Every action we make has an impact on someone. It has the displacement of something. And I firmly believe in collective action and community engagement and narrative building where people feel a sense of ownership. We look around as if everything is meant to be ours. Nothing is ours. We have a responsibility, and it goes back to education and school systems. We have to understand where we started. The concept of collective well-being, interconnected health. What happens in the ocean impacts the sea, impacts the individual, but who is the catalyst for all of this? It's us, people, individuals. It's how we raise our children. It's the conversations we have in the workplace. It's the behaviors that we exhibit. So it does start from the top. Yes, it does involve government with mandates. Yes, it does involve the CEO of the company for the culture of the company, but it involves the mother and the father at home to teach that child the value of the environment and the lived environment around them. We don't do that anymore. We are so focused on these machines and artificial intelligence and all these flashy, wonderful things of the future. But ladies and gentlemen, it'll be worth nothing if we have nothing to stand on, if the air we breathe isn't clean, if the water we drink isn't clean, and if the environment around us is damaged. There is no amount of technology that can bring it back. I am imploring you, it is in your hands, it is in my hands. Educate your children. Go out, walk, breathe, swim, appreciate it, because if you don't, you won't know what you're missing and you won't know what you're destroying.
John? I don't know what you're going to say after that, but we're going to let you try.
Well, look, I absolutely agree with Princess Reema, and we're totally aligned on that. Look, I think our children are going to teach us what we need to do. I fully subscribe to the fact that you can't rely on governments and NGOs and even the private sector to a certain extent. Although the private sector, I think, is a great mobilizer of starting to take positive action. We all need to start where we are today. Every one of us in this room, and our children will never forgive us if we don't start. Take the first step. Be it get rid of plastic bottles, use glass bottles for to avoid that 12 to 14 million tons of plastics ending up in our oceans. If we wait for somebody else to do it, it'll never get done. We need to start. My disagreement would be we need to start from the bottom up. If the people start it, then the governments and the private sector will follow. They have to follow. The industry is, the public, especially Gen Z and Gen X, are demanding that we do something about their future, their planet, and they want us to act and act now. We're doing it at Red Sea as a platform to showcase to the world that you can develop in harmony with nature, not against nature. And we're doing it in multiple different ways. We've done things that have never been done before. We're using what Saudi Arabia has given us the opportunity to do to showcase to the world. But it's taking those first steps. And our goal and our ambition is that people will follow our lead. They will follow what you heard in the previous panel. If they're generating 9 gigawatts of renewable energy per year in this country, that's phenomenal. we're one of the first to have done it, and we're super proud of that fact. But again, it comes back to people taking their initiation to start this work, and the rest will follow from there.
One interesting aspect, John, and I'd like to hear your views on this, is the question of the supply chain issue in the context of the ocean economy. Earlier today, we heard a conversation around how supply chain was a problem. Sometimes it's a problem, sometimes it's not. It's an excuse. It occupies a peculiar space. I'm going to briefly ask you to share with me your thoughts on how we address that supply chain question in a way that allows us to have a better ocean economy?
Well, again, I think Princess Reema alluded to it. You know, we can't continue to take out of the ocean because it's not a never-ending supply. We need to be much more, strategic in the way we fish our oceans. I mean, seafood is obviously, it creates proteins for 1 billion people a year, and it has the potential to feed many more. But we have to fish sustainably. We need to stop, killing additional fish through the course of capturing one fish because of the nets that we use and so on. So I think we just have to be much more responsible, and like we have sustainable forestry. If we pursued timber the way it has typically been done, you just cut down all the trees, you have no trees left. But we've learned over time that if you do it in a sequence, that you cut down trees in one location, you plant the new ones, and over the 60-year cycle that it takes a tree to grow, you've got a forest still there. And I think we need to adapt the same approach within the oceans.
Princess Reema, I'm going to come to you because I believe that there is something that you would like to share with us, so you have our attention.
Thank you. Well, first, I'd like to recognize a few people in the audience who really are the inspiration and driving force behind the work that I do. Alexandra Cousteau, who opened my eyes to the ocean and is our advisor and just a dear friend. Professor Carlos Duarte, Ralph Shami, and the whole White Wave team, and Prince Sultan, who really have been the guiding force for what we hope to present to you today. And so I'm honored to present to you Ocean Central, which is a new digital platform that the Wave with FII have been working on. We've worked with an amazing organization, and Dan Hammer is, I hope, in the audience and will wave his hand for anyone who needs a genius. He's in the room. But I believe we're at a pivotal moment in history where the decisions that we make for our oceans today are really going to shape the future of our planet. And that we believe the ocean is vital to the global economy and for our collective well-being. And while the challenges before us, they are immense, from rising seas to plastic pollution and overfishing, as John just mentioned, and the devastating loss of over 50% of marine life. So today, we're not about dwelling on these challenges. We're focused on the solutions, and we're focused on the positive impact that we could have. And while the global initiatives are setting ambitious targets to regenerate a thriving ocean, what we feel has been missing is a clear view of what this journey is and a true picture of the progress. And so WAVE has developed Ocean Central to provide that clarity. And we've been harnessing the power of cutting-edge technology, data science, and Ocean Central, powered by FII, is going to convene the best available ocean data to track progress, and we hope to drive collaboration and collaborative action towards ocean conservation and restoration efforts. This platform will bring together not just ocean data, but science, design, storytelling, and strategy into a unified experience that's aimed at driving actions. And so while other platforms do focus on gathering data, what we hope to do is to integrate global ocean targets with these data sets and offer accessible, user-friendly experiences to understand the evolving state of the ocean. And we aim to make sense of this data by bridging cultural gaps and by delivering actionable insights to inform meaningful action. So from our point of view, Ocean Central is more than a data tool. We're creating a collaborative space where businesses, governments, scientists, and citizens can come together to contribute to the oceans. But the key here is your contribution. Our ask of you today is to join us on this journey to regenerate the oceans within one human generation. That's the challenge that Professor Carlos Duarte has given us. And ladies and gentlemen, I hope that we can stand up and do this. But we need you. Today's launch tells us that there's so much that we need to uncover and understand about the oceans. And we need the scientific community to join us, industry to join us, business leaders and individuals who care about our oceans, and to help fill these critical gaps. And so, ladies and gentlemen, together, I hope that we build a collective understanding of ocean health and help to ensure a thriving ocean by 2050. Thank you.
For generations, my family has explored the ocean and its vital role in the health of our planet and the well-being of people everywhere. Over the course of my life, I've seen the decline of our ocean's ecosystems and the disappearance of many beloved creatures. But there's still time to reverse these trends. By leveraging cutting-edge technology and turning data into accessible insights, we can work together to restore the ocean's abundance in one human generation. This is the vision driving Ocean Central.
We believe that it's possible to regenerate the oceans within one human generation. But for me, it has always been a source of frustration that nobody's tracking how we are progressing towards that goal, how we are progressing in activating the wedges of action that are needed to achieve these goals, and how the ocean is responding to those actions. This is why WAVE has created Ocean Central, to be able to share with the world a tracking device that is going to inform how are we progressing in activating the policies and actions required to rebuild the abundance of life, and how the ocean ecosystem is responding to those efforts. We also in Ocean Central have identified a number of data gaps that need to be addressed to be able to have a complete tracking of the ocean ecosystem health and response, and we encourage partnerships to be able to address those goals. So we celebrate the fact that we can now measure and we can now track our efforts to rebuild the abundance of life in the oceans.
The ocean is a key driver of the global economy, supporting industries from shipping to tourism. Innovation and investment are critical, not only for addressing ocean challenges, but for unlocking the vast economic opportunities that ocean regeneration presents. Ocean Central has the potential to inform data-driven decision-making, empowering business leaders, policymakers, and organizations worldwide to protect assets and drive transformative change.
Ocean Central by WAVE is more than a data hub. It's a platform designed to evolve with technology and foster global collaboration. We track milestones for 2030 and 2050, translating data into stories that make ocean health relevant for everyone. Recognizing the urgent need for accessible ocean data, WAVE has made this platform a priority. As we move forward, we will expand data coverage, global initiatives, and partnerships. Ocean Central is a collective effort, and this launch is just the beginning. Join us in shaping the future for ocean health at oceancentral.org.
And I think that deserves another round of applause. Not just ambitious, but inspiring as well. Princess Reema mentioned this in her conversation, and it came through in the remarks during the video as well. There is a partnership required, and it is a holistic partnership, no doubt. How do we begin to make sure that that happens, perhaps in 2 steps, as we say goodbye and end this conversation, John?
Well, I think it starts with acknowledging that there's a problem and we need to do something about it. And you need governments, NGOs to work alongside the private sector. If you don't have that collaboration and everybody working with the same goal in mind, I don't think we accomplish anything. So I think that's key to really unlocking everything. I think Saudi Arabia is really leading the way in that regard. We've done more in this place than I've seen done anywhere else in the world in terms of promoting, sustainable practices, renewable energy, and obviously acknowledging the importance of our oceans.
John, it's been a pleasure. We have to leave it there because we're completely out of time. Otherwise, we could talk for another 30 minutes. Thank you so very much. And of course, to Her Royal Highness as well, and all the hard work that you're both doing. We appreciate it very much. A round of applause for them.
Thank you.